In only a few seconds, you will find yourself amid an insurgency of pre-recorded audio. What you will hear will be beyond a doubt proof that mankind has mastered the medium of sound. This is Earth Oddity, and these are your hosts, Christopher Teeny Sullivan and John Lang.
Hey guys, Tiny here with a special bonus episode of Earth Oddity where I had the pleasure to get to talk to Steve Wiebe, two-time Donkey Kong champion, amateur musician, movie star, and all-around nice guy. This really is my favorite interview that I've done so far. So without further ado, here's Steve Wiebe. Really hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Hey, thank you so much for doing this. Hey, I really appreciate it.
Hey, you bet. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Steve Wiebe, I guess if I was going to just to start with, ask you a question, did you have any idea that Donkey Kong would turn you into a celebrity?
Never in a million years. When I was playing it in my garage, I was just trying to get a high score that I thought was just going to go on some internet page and have very little consequence, but it turned out to be quite a roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
Why? Is there any particular reason you chose Donkey Kong? Was that just a favorite of yours that you've been playing for a long time, or?
Yeah, that was the one of the few that I loved growing up. There was Donkey Kong Jr., of course, and then there was Pac-Man for a little bit, Asteroids, but Donkey Kong was always my favorite. And then I got a machine in college, and I just got better and better at it, and just kind of motivated me to just keep going. So yeah, I always thought that was the best game around.
Okay, cool. And so one day you just decided, hey, I'm going to go for the highest score there is. And I would imagine most everyone listening to this has seen The King of Kong Fistful of Quarters. I know it's been out for a bit now, but just in case anyone hasn't, you submitted a tape for the high score, and that just launched you into a world that you didn't know it existed before, of retro gamers and the competitiveness of the classic gaming scene.
That is correct. Yeah, I didn't know anything about the other gamers. I never met anybody except friends of mine in town, but I knew of Twin Galaxies. I stumbled upon them when I always was curious about what the high score was, because back in 91-ish, I got to the kill screen twice and didn't know what was happening. And then I was always curious what the record was. No one knew. I asked a friend of mine that actually worked at Nintendo, or he was like one of those guys that people called questions if they had problems on, a game. They would call my friend at Nintendo, and he would help them through whatever it was. And I go, is there any records of anything? And he never had an answer for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the internet came around, and eventually, it was late 1999-ish, somewhere in that vicinity is when I was able to look it up and saw Twin Galaxies had the score. Billy Mitchell was actually had the record at that time. It was before Zerby had got his record, but it was maybe only a few months before Zerby. So I knew I had a score that was better than that. And then I just decided, hey, let's go ahead and buy a machine. Had sold my other machine, and I know I could get this record, and it'd be something just to accomplish. And that's what I did, and it just opened up, like you said, a whole new world that I never knew existed.
So, hey, Steve, this is John.
This is the other guy.
I'm the co-host.
Hi, John.
I'm extremely more country sounding than Tiny, so not to shock you, we are in Alabama.
Alabama.
Literally the other side of the country.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So my question was, how did they approach you about doing this movie? How did it get off the ground?
Well, my friend Mike Thompson's in the movie. We go back to 7th grade, played baseball together, and played in the band in high school. So I was telling him things that were happening with, Donkey Kong. He knew I was going for the record a little bit. I think I'd told him stuff here and there. But when I told him that some guys came over to inspect my machine, he couldn't believe that people were taking it this serious. And he thought, there's a documentary here. And he's a screenwriter. He knows good stories, and he knew this was something that would be interesting. And it happened that he, another mutual friend of ours, had a buddy that was in the documentary scene, and he was finishing up a movie called New York Dolls, and they were at the end editing stage, and they were, they're always looking for the next idea. So my friend Mike Thompson relayed this story on to these people. I didn't know who they were. I'd heard of one of the guys, Ed Cunningham, played football for the University of Washington, and I knew of him. I never met him. So they got wind of the story, and they were interested in doing it. And I met Ed, and I didn't meet Seth yet, but I met Ed in downtown Seattle shortly after they were interested in following the story. And he said, just write down a timeline of all the events that have taken place, up until now, because they obviously weren't around to catch a lot of the stuff that's in the documentary. It was kind of backstory stuff. But they picked it up right when, Fun Spot, from there on, they were on the scene. Oh. So it was basically my friend Mike Thompson was the liaison to the story getting told.
Nice.
Quick question. Why is Fun Spot the mecca of retro video games? Is there any reason why?
Well, I'd never heard of it, never been there. It's a huge arcade. It has like miniature golf and everything. Mm-hmm. There's a bingo thing right next door to it. If I remember right, Doris Self was going over to the bingo parlor. But there's like if I remember, it's 2 stories. The whole, it's filled with probably every arcade game you'd want to be able to play on. So I think that's probably why just the normality of it is this huge place. And the arcades that I grew up in were just like, small scale compared to this. But I'm sure there's other places that might be as big as this, or not quite as big. But for some reason, this was tagged as the mecca. Maybe this is where, Steve Sanders grew up in Kansas City, so I don't know if he was going to Fun Spot, but I don't know how it got that tag. But he called it, I think, Steve Sanders called it the mecca of video gaming in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it is a big place. That's probably the only reason I can think of. It's got all the arcade games you can think of playing.
Okay.
So one of the most fascinating things about the documentary to me is how understanding your wife is. Being a married man myself, and, I have children, and anytime I decide to maybe like practice the guitar or something, something always comes up. So how did you navigate that with her? Because I would imagine it takes quite a long time to set a record and to practice to set a record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember any formal discussion. I think I just said, hey, I'm interested in getting a Donkey Kong machine. I need to buy it, and told her the price, and she was resisting it. She probably didn't know what was in store. I didn't say I'm going to be buying.
Wives just don't understand, man.
Yeah, exactly. But there wasn't a problem at first. I mean, I didn't, and even along the way when I was playing it, she didn't have a problem as long as I was, the kids were young, and as long as I was helping out and didn't spend there all day in the garage playing.
Right.
So she had said, like, after the kids are in bed, and go ahead and play. And eventually I kind of snuck out to the garage during the day and scored some points there. But she was very supportive. Yeah, I guess she just knew I had a Donkey Kong in college, so she probably knew that was one of my passions. She knows music was a big passion of mine, and video games, Donkey Kong in particular. So she didn't hold me. She's not into holding me back to anything that's within reason,
Nice.
So yeah, so she was very supportive.
That's a good woman.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
My wife, she's grown to accept it, but she still hates the fact that I have a podcast that I sink probably 5 hours into every week. She hates it. So if I tried to set a record or something, she would just be like, no. Well, let me ask you this. After the movie ends, and again, this movie's been around for a while, but it ended with your tape being, I guess, accepted. But then in 2018, Billy Mitchell's records were stripped of him. And I'm not smart enough to know, but he was accused of using MAME, which I suppose that opens up save states and things like that. How did you find out about that whole thing, that whole controversy?
Well, there was some grumblings that this was before the formal allegations were laid out, but there was some Donkey Kong players that didn't believe that he had scored. I always believed his scores because I had no reason to doubt them. But they were starting to doubt that he even scored what he got in the movie because, when he played in the Kong offs, he didn't perform well for whatever reason. But a lot of times he would just take over the master of ceremonies role, and he was great at that. So he kind of didn't play as much as the other gamers. But so these other gamers were just really starting to doubt whether he even got the 1,000,000 points back in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And so I was like kind of curious. I was going, wow. And then that was like a couple years before the Jeremy Young is the one who kind of spearheaded the allegations. And when I didn't hear I didn't see it directly on the internet, but my friend who is a Galaga world record holder, he had it at the time. He's not now no longer the champion, but he's been a friend of mine since he saw the movie and reached out to me, and we've been friends for now like 10 years. But he called me and said, "Hey, did you see the latest with Billy Mitchell?" And I was like, "No." And then I just typed in whatever. I went on the internet and searched, and there was just at Donkey Kong Forum is where all the evidence was laid out. I went there and they showed all the screenshots showing the loading of the boards that are not arcade-like images, and they had all the evidence spelled out. And I was like, wow, this is crazy that someone thought to analyze it this closely. But then Billy denied it all still. So I was like going, the truth, I'm never sure what the truth is with all this. I'm pretty much in the dark in most of this stuff. I just play the game of Donkey Kong, submit scores, and at that point I have no control of what's going to happen. So I was like, okay, if that's what they came up with, I was accepting that as the truth because there was analysts going through it. And then they gave me being the first to 1,000,000 points, they gave me that title.
Cool. So
that was Twin Galaxies and the Donkey Kong Forum, which is an informal Donkey Kong community, but it's not a official world record tracking. But they do have a scoreboard that they have, and they stripped all of Billy's scores, and so did Twin Galaxies. Mm-hmm. And then I think even Guinness did for a little bit there. So
right.
And I was like, okay, I guess that's what happened. But Billy was drumming up his side of things, so he was fighting back, and I wasn't sure what. I knew that Twin Galaxies wasn't going to budge because they had done all their research and they were firm in their stance. But then there was the story that he was suing people and he was fighting Guinness, and Guinness was maybe going to look into it and reconsider. So that's where I didn't know what was going to happen from there.
Do you and Billy have any sort of relationship, friendship, anything like that?
I don't call him outside of events. I'll see him at the Kong off, and we're friendly to each other. We don't, we're not great buddies or anything, but I think he respects me and I respect him, and we talk and we'll chat here a little bit there, and then I don't see him again for another year. So, we're not harboring any ill will. At least this doesn't appear to be anything
right
on the surface.
So most of that we see in the movie, that's water under the bridge at this point, right? Because I know that I'm assuming after the movie, this just blew up Donkey Kong bigger than it was before. It appears to be like super competitive now, and I know that high scores have been traded back and forth between several different people. So is that just kind of, I guess, was he portrayed in a certain light in the movie, or is he really the Adam Sandler-esque movie villain that he came off in the movie?
I think he has that persona, the arrogance, which I think most of his friends, he's not a wimp or anything. He's got, he's going to stand up tall and portray confidence in that. So he's definitely not a pushover, and he's powerful in his own way. So The movie showed clips and things and pieced them together to build the story. Like anything that you're going to tell a story, a book, or anything you write, it's going to be framed, so it's got to be a story moving people and make it interesting. And I think what they highlighted was his arrogance and made him like the evil character, and and I was like just the lonesome loser kind of character that they hyped a little bit on either end to make this dichotomy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So the people that argue it is fictitious and all that, the story, the main part of the story, what I did and the events are true, but if you're going to tell a documentary and make it interesting, if you just can't have a bunch of, it's like a History Channel, you can't just have people chatting and saying dates and stuff, it would never have even taken off. So that's just what you do with stories.
If we could for just a second, let's back up a little and talk about your illustrious movie career. How did you start getting bit roles in all these films?
Yeah, well, Seth Gordon, the director, King of Kong, he got his first, with the success of the documentary, he got a gig for directing the movie Four Christmases, like just a year later. And I thought I heard that Vince Vaughn who was in the movie, was interested in, hey, you should bring Wiebe on for one of the roles here.
So that was Vince Vaughn's idea to bring you on.
That's what I thought, but Seth ultimately was the one to make it happen, because he's the director. But and I think Seth may have had it in his head to maybe have me do cameos in his movies. But so I got that little part, and then I was actually down in Hollywood for a whole month because the part was my role was in a few scenes that was spaced out, and I had to take time off from teaching and everything. So, and then from there, it just Seth started. He got the next movie, and he did some pilot episodes for some TV shows. And
are you talking about Sneaky Pete?
Yeah, I did. Sneaky Pete. There was Goldberg's. There was one called Breaking In. It had Christian Slater in it. It was on Channel 13. I think it may have lasted one season, but I thought it was an interesting concept. But I had little tiny cameo appearances in those, and that was all Seth at that point. I think he had mentioned I'm kind of like his good luck charm, kind of kept me in as a little small luck charm there.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I was appreciative of that. So I was always able to get off from school, take a few days or whatever it took, and go on the set.
So did he just call you up out of the blue and was like, hey, I got this movie and I want you to be in it? Or how did that call go?
Yeah, that's kind of what happens. I don't remember the first one. It must have been a text, but after that, there were just text messages like, hey, do you want to be in my new movie? That's all he would say. I go,
okay.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be in it. Yeah, let me know. Then you would send details and hook me up with like people that would set up like flights and all that. And then, the Pixels movie, I had actually got that. He had probably been in, he wasn't directing it. I think he might have been somehow linked with it, but he wasn't the director. Christopher Columbus was. So I got if I remember for that one, I just got an email from somebody about Pixels, and they were saying, hey, we'd like you to play this part. And the original part I was supposed to play was a guy in the arcade that was dressed up kind of like a Karate Kid with whatever you have on your forehead.
Yeah.
When I watched the movie, there was someone else playing that part, but I wasn't able to get off from school to film that part, so they gave me the
DARPA scientist.
A scientist in a laboratory, and I was in the laboratory, and Josh Gad came in, and he was starting to meddle with this little this rover thing or whatever you want to call those. That what are those things called when you whatever?
I thought just a rover, right?
Rover, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's on my laboratory desk, and he starts playing around with some remote control, and he flies it, and it flies it right into a bank of computers, and all these explosions go off. They had to have all these pyrotechnic people set stuff up. And I thought that scene was going to be in the movie because they spent so much time with that, and then it didn't make the movie.
Oh, man.
So I'm not even in the movie, but they have me in the credits. It's kind of funny. So maybe I was like somewhere in the background. I didn't even realize I could have been somewhere in there, but it was cool. I got to hang out with Adam Sandler, and we played 2-on-2 basketball with a couple of other guys.
That is super cool.
Yeah, me and Adam were a team, and we did well. He was like the post player. I'd be outside shooting 3 balls, and he had to be inside. So he has a pretty good game. So if you've seen Grown Ups and he's playing basketball, it's about basically what he was playing like.
Who was on Peter Dinklage's team in the basketball game?
Oh, Peter Dinklage.
The Sandler posted him up.
You know, we're all laughing our heads off.
I did meet Peter Dinklage too. I met him. So yeah, he was a cool guy. I wasn't even a Game of Thrones fan. I mean, I know Peter Dinklage because Elf, the movie Elf.
Yes, my favorite Christmas movie. We watch it every year.
I watch it every year too. It's classic. But I was great to meet Peter. But at that point, I had never even really watched Game of Thrones because it's an HBO series, and I don't get HBO, and I didn't buy any of the DVD sets or anything. So I wasn't like people who were into Game of Thrones were like, "Oh, wow, you got to meet Peter Dinklage." I was like, "Yeah, he's cool," but I didn't have the Game of Thrones image, of meeting the guy that's like one of the best characters, I guess, in that series.
I've actually never seen it either, but I was going to ask you, and maybe this just comes from what I see of him in movies like Endgame, and I was a fan of the Ron Burgundy podcast, and he was on an episode of that. Is he as serious in real life as he is in his parts? Because he puts off this vibe like he is there for business. He's not there to make friends. He's there to make art. Is that what he's like in real life, or is he a little more laid back?
No, he was laid back when I met him. I went up to his trailer, and I don't remember if someone escorted me there, and we knocked on the door, and he came out smiling and happy. We got a picture together. Yeah, he seemed fun.
Cool.
He wasn't like the Miles, whatever his last name was.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you about, I know you've made a lot of music and released a few albums. I was just going to ask you about anything currently you got going on with that.
Yeah, I released my 4th CD just a few months ago. So I have quite a music career that no one knows about.
Well, I know about it because I read it on your Wikipedia.
It's better than mine, which absolutely no one knows about.
A few people, yeah. It's really hard to get. I find that even if people that hear it, they like it, they think it's great, and they think it could be on the radio, but it's really hard to get the average person who, they have to be told something's good,
Yeah.
A lot of people are just consumers. Like for me, like movies, I'm not really going out there to find some undercover movie that is great. I'm giving you feed me the commercial movie, and I'll sit there and watch Arnold Schwarzenegger blow up the world, and I'll eat it up. So that's a lot of the people, and I'm trying to criticize people, but their music is not something they're out there seeking under unsigned artists.
Right.
They're not going to listen to, even though a song is only 3 minutes, they don't want to waste time like trying to hear a song. If they want to go right to the songs they know and love. So it's really hard to get anything going in music, but I'm just happy to record it and put it out on the internet. And there's people that like it. So that's all. If I get one person to like it, that's meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like if you want to have like a hit worship song, what you need to do is take an old hymn that people haven't sang in a long time and write a custom bridge, and then just sing the chorus over and over and over again.
We call that the Crowder.
Isn't that the formula for hit worship songs? At least it is down here in the Southeast.
Yeah, definitely, probably. They got to hit them with the familiar. When they hear something familiar, then they'll gravitate towards it.
That's right. What kind of music were you into growing up?
Let's see, I have bands in the high school, and that was like early 80s. So, I like Rush is my favorite.
Oh, I love Rush. I love Rush.
And yeah, Rush, and we'd be playing a lot of Led Zeppelin and some Van Halen a little bit. So all those bands that, I mean, you don't hear, there's the day of the band is over. I don't,
Right.
you know, there's not
Right.
gonna, it's kind of sad, I guess. You know, they say rock is dead. Probably is, because like to an extent, you're not gonna get bands like where some guitarist like Eddie Van Halen. There's not gonna be another era,
Right.
I don't think, where the guitarists of those calibers are gonna be, you know, in the forefront of music. It's all about like the country pop,
Yes.
Yes.
big hip hop and rap, and you know, and I try to watch Songland, that show, and it's mostly that kind of singer songwriter stuff. It's not, you know, there's not a lot of band oriented. It's mostly vocals and a lot of the, and I use a lot of in my music, since I don't have musicians, I have to use MIDI,
Mhm.
you know, sounds that aren't real, and that's a lot of the stuff that you hear they're not using, like real drums.
Right.
They might, I mean, some are, but there's some
Right.
it's just programmed, and that works for the music. But so back in the day, everything was like real guitars, drums, everything, and it was great. And then that's gone, I guess. But that's what I grew up on.
Yeah. That's why I don't think kids these days get together in their garage and just sound awful for 6 months figuring out, you know, 4 or 5 songs to play at a backyard party somewhere. That whole culture's lost, I think.
They get on a MacBook
Yeah.
Pro.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
they do now.
Yeah, they'll make
Yeah,
something
they
in
don't do that.
GarageBand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I teach at high school, and there's like maybe 1 or 10 years I've been there, maybe 1 or 2 high school bands have played.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the same.
Yeah, it's kind of sad when you think about it. Or maybe we're just old and this is what our parents sounded like when Elvis was cutting records or whatever.
Well, yeah. If you go back to the big band era, the people that, like our parents who grew up on that, this is sad. This is a travesty. What happened to the big bands? You know, they're gone.
Yeah,
And I guess that's the way we're looking at our rock and roll bands.
right. Yeah. But, I mean, there's still something about getting together with your friends and playing music that you can't get that experience anywhere else, you know? Like, I remember the first time, you know, we were playing whatever it was, like a Cream song, and, you know, you lock in on a groove together, and it's just like the best feeling in the world. And kids don't get that anymore. I hate it.
Yeah, I remember, our high school band, we were creating music, and we would come up with something really cool. We'd all just burst out in laughter because it was just like amazing. It just sounded cool to create something.
Yeah.
Do you still have any of that music from your high school days?
Yeah, the guitarist, he's pretty technical, so he's rounded up all these cassette tapes, and he's bought equipment that he can digitize it and upload it to a program called Pro Tools, and he can edit, try to make it sound as good as you can. But when you're getting stuff off these Kmart, you know, cassettes from
Right.
the 1980s,
Right.
it's hard to make it sound much better. But he's been doing a good job of that, and he's like releasing it to, you know, he's sending us links to the songs, and it's kind of fun to hear it back. We can't believe how we were putting up with the poor quality, like you know, recording it out of a boombox onto a cassette tape, and we thought that was actually good sound. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, for the time, it wasn't that far off. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
for that time.
yeah. Is that up on any streaming platforms anywhere or anything? Like, if someone wanted to check that out, could they?
Not unless I put it up. Maybe some point in time I could put that up somewhere.
Yeah. The Steve Wiebe deep cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, hey, remember hidden tracks back in the 90s? You could buy a CD, and then like 15 minutes after the last song, something that you didn't know about would pop up.
Yeah, the Easter eggs. Yeah.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this, and I'm sure you've heard about this, but last week, Guinness World Records, I guess they bowed the knee to Billy Mitchell and decided to reinstate all of his records. Had you heard about that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, usually these things I get wind of from a friend of mine that texts me or sends me a link to an article, and that's when I heard about it. I think I knew he was like in the middle of, you know, Guinness and them were reconsidering, so I kind of knew it was possible, but I didn't know until someone sent me a link, and I was just like, I read it, and they were saying they did their own independent study, and and based on eyewitnesses, but they didn't spell out any of the scientific,
right, any of the criteria. They just
And they said they did their own study, and then they concluded there wasn't enough to overturn it. I think it may have been similar to like when they make a call in football, once you rule it a touchdown, if you don't have conclusive evidence,
right,
they were saying they can't overturn it, but they didn't confirm. From what I could tell, they didn't say that it was absolutely done on an arcade. They just said we don't have the information to, which I don't know who did the study or whatnot, but Twin Galaxies is still not budging, and they have to go to court on this. So at this point in time, it's kind of like the boxing. I think there's like two titles. There's like, I don't know what the names of them are. So I guess in one title he has the first to $1 million, and the other title I had the first 2 million.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a split decision there, but so it's going to be interesting to see what the lawsuit how it plays out with he's suing Twin Galaxies, and I think a couple other individuals like Jeremy Young, who started the allegations, is being sued.
Yeah, he sued a YouTuber also that goes by the name Apollo Legend. I don't know the guy, but apparently he's a speedrunner. He made a viral video breaking down how Billy allegedly cheated in his scores. He sued him too, so. Yeah,
he sued him, and I think, so he's going after a few people, and I think maybe some of them, I think Apollo may have, I don't know if he's agreed to pull down all his videos that are incriminating to Billy, so he's not being sued. Now, maybe he's still being sued, but so we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think it's really hard to, I'm not a lawyer, of course, but
right,
to claim, and I think it's defamation of character he's trying to get to. And yes. I think there's a certain fine line between freedom of speech and, because if you're saying things you believe is true and you're not acting out of trying to bring somebody down,
mm-hmm.
They have to decide, is it malicious intent here, or are these people claiming what they believe is true? I mean, if you have to be able to say stuff that is incriminating, and that's what Twin Galaxies was doing, and they were acting on good faith with it was what they believe, and so I don't know how they could be. I don't know exactly what charges they're being sued for, but I know defamation of character is very tough to do.
Yeah. Right. I know that Apollo Legend, just like last week, just hours after Guinness World Records made their announcement, he put up a video calling out Guinness World Records. So I don't know if his Billy Mitchell videos are up, but he is not happy about what's going on.
Yeah, they should make another movie. Like everyone's asking for, where's King of Kong 2? And they could probably make 3 or 4 of them. This could be like the whole Friday the 13th series.
Yeah, where every single time you think Billy's dead, he comes back up from the bottom of the lake and continues to seek vengeance on those he feels wronged him.
Yeah. Yeah, so there could be another. I know that they were always wanting to do a Hollywood version of the King of Kong, and they never were able to get a good script that they liked, because they didn't want to just retell the documentary exactly the same way. They wanted to have a little different perspective on the story. So I don't know if they have enough material now. I thought they were going to even, after Billy was accused of cheating, I thought that was enough to maybe spur on another documentary. Now that this decision's reversed or partly reversed, now I thought, again, they might have another bunch of material, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, yeah, I know that my co-host, he was the one who actually picked the documentary for every month. We do a patrons exclusive show, and we started this new segment where we just have podcasters like to talk about what they're into or what they enjoy. It's easy. It's something you can talk about. And John was actually the one who picked King of Kong. And then after I watched the movie, I started, looking it up, and I was like, oh my goodness, this story is still happening. Like there's still developments happening right now. So there's it certainly seems like there's plenty there for a part 2 if somebody would ever decide to make it. But if they did make a Hollywood movie, who would you want playing you?
Well, back like 15 years ago when it was discussed, or maybe 13 years now, I think the names that like Jason Bateman came up.
That's a good one.
But now that everyone's getting older, I know Jason's going to be 60 until, if they ever do make the movie, he'll be too old. Yeah. And then there was people thought Nathan Fillion looked like me, or I looked like him a little bit.
Yeah.
He's the guy that was in, he's been on some TV series. Can't think of the names now. And, I think those were the couple names that were out there. I know that Jack Black wanted to play Billy. I think I heard that from somebody.
That'd be good.
That would be good.
Although I got to say, if you've seen the movie Pixels, Peter Dinklage basically played Billy Mitchell already in that movie.
I don't think that was coincidence either.
Right.
Oh, so funny. Well, let me ask you one more thing. I was looking on Twin Galaxies just the other night, and I saw that I think they've got you currently at number 14 on the leaderboards. But I was looking at a post that you made last month, and it sounded an awful lot like you were maybe getting back into the Donkey Kong competitiveness, like you were coming out of retirement. Is that the case?
Yeah. Well, I was kind of watching my score drop, and then I thought I need to probably put up a score that reflects the scores I can get now. So I'm just gonna do that. I have a streaming setup, and I've streamed once last week, and I was gone for the last 4 days, so I wasn't available to stream. But I was gonna start streaming this summer because I have time on my hands, and I was gonna put up a score that would maybe get me in the top 10 at least. The world record's so high up there, it would take me a few years to develop the skill set to get that and the time needed. I mean, if you watch the guys go for the world records, they gotta point press so hard that they gotta get a lot of luck because they're just putting themselves in risk every second. So they gotta just grind it out and play so many hours and hopefully hit that one special game, which can take a lot of time. So I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I think I can at least get myself my goal is the top 5 at least.
Nice. I don't know Donkey Kong, but it seems like it's no longer about making it to the kill screen. Now it's about, jumping as many barrels as you can, about just getting as many points as you can. Is that the strategy these days?
That's true, yeah. Like the gameplay before, it was just surviving, and not a lot of people could survive all the way to the end. But now it's a total different game. Yeah, it's like you're trying to score. It's like it's an art form in scoring points, so it's totally different.
Right.
Than when I was playing it. I mean, we had to figure out a way to get enough points to get 1 million. But from there, there wasn't all these people involved that were pushing the scores. They came along after I kind of started fading out of the game, and so I wasn't ever pushing the limits like they are now. So it's definitely. That's the way the new guys have grown up playing it. So this is probably the normal way of playing it for them. So that's how they play it.
I would just like to commend you for getting a streaming set up and trying to come back legitimately instead of just going after the guys who beat your score and saying that their scores weren't legitimate and taking pictures of their Donkey Kong hardware and trying to blackball them.
Yeah, that's not the way I operate. Yeah, they've put in a lot of work. I've met all the top gamers, and I know they work hard, and I respect all of them. So yeah, I'm just hoping to get my game up a little bit, and that's kind of the challenge now.
Walter Day, where's he at these days? I know Twin Galaxies is now owned by somebody else, aren't they?
Yeah, Twin Galaxies is owned by Jace Hall.
Okay.
And Walter Day, I believe, still in Iowa.
Okay. Does he have anything to do with the website anymore, or is that something he's just passed on?
Yeah, he's sold. It's been sold and changed hands a couple times since he's left there. So he's no longer a part of it at all, and Billy is no longer a part of it. Most of the people that were there are no longer part of it.
Yeah, it looks like a whole new site. It's got a social feature now, and you can follow gamers' profiles. It's really come up since back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. They have email. You can friend people. It's basically like its own little internet world of email and social connecting.
Where are you streaming on Twitch? If someone wanted to check out your streams, where would they go?
Yeah, Twitch. You just go on Twitch. You don't even have to have an account. You can go on there, and if you want to follow me, I think you may have to have an account, but you just go on and you can just search for Steve J. Wiebe, Wiebe, and then you can if I'm streaming, it will show up on the left side of the screen. It'll show a bunch of people who are streaming. You just click on my name, and it'll bring up the game.
Nice. It seems like you got anything else?
No, nothing comes to mind other than I think you're an awesome dude, Steve. I appreciate you coming on so much, and I really identify with you and King of Kong much more than any of the other people in there. You just seem like just a normal, regular dude who decided to go, had this specific talent and decided to set your record. And I think that's a great thing and a great lesson for anybody.
Well, thanks, John. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever go to any events anymore? Like, I know you talking about the Kong Off and things like that.
The Kong Offs are the main one. There's a pinball video game show that happens in Seattle every year. I was going to those a few times. I popped down there. If they have it, I don't know if they're gonna, with the day and age of what we're going through, they may not have it this summer. But I've been to those a few times. But I don't travel like around the states. Like, I think Billy does a lot of appearances in multiple like conventions, but I don't unless someone invited me, directly. I don't seek those out. I don't have the time and the money to fly around. But
right.
But I do go to the Kong Offs if I can, and then the local conventions I'll go to.
Well, let me ask you this. How much would it cost us to get you in some Earth Oddity swag next time you go to an event?
$0. You gotta send it to me.
Dude, awesome. I will text you. Man, because, again, I cannot thank you enough. Our podcast is not huge. We don't have a huge audience, and you're certainly the biggest name that we've ever talked to on the show, and we cannot thank you enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
No problem. Glad to be on.
If you're ever in Alabama, we'll buy you some barbecue or something.
Yes.
All right.
I'll let you sign my baby.
Maybe we can get a...
Maybe to an Alabama football game. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
There you go. Yeah.
If we could get an Alabama-Washington regular season home and home going, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Well, anyway, again, thank you so much, and please keep us posted on any updates, and anytime you want to come back on the show and shout something out, just don't hesitate. Is there anything that you would like to shout out on the show real quick? Any social or anything like that?
Not really. Just thanks for everybody who supports me, I guess. And you can check out the streaming. Just hop on Twitch every now and then. I don't know if you follow me, I think you'll get emails that tell you when I'm on playing, so you don't have to like randomly check if you become a follower.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Shout out to those people that would support me. That'd be great.
Yes, sir.
Well, I know this is the third time I've said it, but thank you so much.
Oh yeah.
You have a great day, and good luck in your pursuit of higher Donkey Kong scores.
Thank you. I will need it.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Right.
Bye.
Thank you, Don. Thanks, Christopher. Bye.
Awesome, dude. Man.
What a nice guy.
Awesome, dude.
How can anybody like Billy Mitchell? See that? Billy's not coming on our podcast.
No, he's not. Golly, what a nice guy. Man, such a pleasure to get to talk to him. One more time, I want to say thank you to Steve Wiebe so much for letting us talk to him, for coming on the show and opening up about his life and what he's accomplished. I would like to remind everyone that if you would like to follow him on Twitch, where he's streaming Donkey Kong, you can just search Steve J. Wiebe. That is Wiebe. All lowercase, all one word, should come right up. You can also stream his music on Spotify. If you just search his name, should come right up. I had no trouble finding it. as well as on YouTube. You can stream him there as well. Oh, by the way, music used in this episode was written and composed by Steve Wiebe, so if you like it, check him out. And you can also follow him on Twitter at Steve Wiebe DK on Twitter. Also, really quick before we go, I would just like to thank all of our Patreon supporters, and I would like to mention that if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can find us. We are patreon.com/Earth Oddity, and there's only about another week left of June, so once again, just for the month of June, if you sign up at the $10 tier, you get a free can of Cajun Curl, some stickers, and a koozie, a nice little prize pack. Don't know if I have another chance to share that with you, so once again, thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you, Steve Wiebe, for coming on the show, and we'll talk at you next week. Now, take it away, Steve.